Section 6.8 The Complex Number System. Objective number 1. Evaluate the square root of negative real numbers. Before we do this, let's go over the definition. We have I squared is negative 1. If we take the square root both sides, it means that we will get I equal square root of negative 1. Example number 1. We want to evaluate square root of negative 16. You know that in the real number, or we use the calculator, it will give you undefined. So we can able to do this problem using the complex number system. We will separate the negative 1 and the 16, and we recall the product property. We can separate them, and then square root of negative 1 is I, square root of 16 is 4, then the answer will be 4i. In problem B, we do the same thing. We will separate the negative and the number, and then we use the property of the product to separate them. Square root of negative 1 is I, and we copied out the square root of 3. Similarly, for square root of negative 18, we will separate the negative 1 and the 18. Square root of negative 1 is I. For 18 is 9 times 2. We will separate continue 9 and 2. And square root of 9, square root of 2. Square root of 9 is 3, so we got 3i square root of 2. The complex number in standard form is a plus bi, for a is a real number and b also a real number. So similarly, like before, we will simplify the example number 2. The 2 we copied out again. Square root of negative 25, we will separate negative 1 and 25. Then 2 minus square root of negative 1 and square root of 25, we separate. Then 2 minus I times 5, or we can write 2 minus 5i. This is the complex number. The a we call is the real part, and the b we call the imaginary part. The imaginary part go with the I. So in this case, a is 2 and b is negative 5. For problem B, is equal to 3 plus negative 1 times 50. We separate negative 50 as negative 1 and 50. And then we will separate the negative 1 and 50. Square root of negative 1 is I. 50 is 5 times 10, and 10 is 5 times 2. So we will separate the 50 as a 25 and 2, because we have 2 5 the same. Then we got 3 plus I square root of 25 times square root of 2. So 3 plus 5i square root of 2. Problem C, we have 4 minus negative 1 and square root of 12. We separate the negative 1 and the 12. Then for the 12, we will do 4 times 3, and 4 square root of 4 is 2. Then we will get 2i square root of 3 over 2. We can factor the top. The GCF is 2. Then we got 2 minus I square root of 3 divided by 2. Then we got 2 minus I square root of 3. In part B, the real is 3 and the imaginary part is 5 square root of 2. In part C, the real part is 2, and the imaginary part is negative square root of 3.